Do you think power means being surrounded by people, advisors, allies, friends, smiling faces, nodding heads, clapping when you speak, raising glasses when you win? But tell me, why does it still burn when they leave? Why does it tear at your chest when the same hands that once lifted you now reach for your place? You chase the illusion of connection, thinking that influence means security. But the higher you rise, the more you see. Power doesn't attract loyalty, it exposes its limits. And those limits come quickly, sharply, and from the people closest to you. The Stoics warned us, the nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength, not applause, not validation. Strength, real strength, remains silent, not on stages. It listens more than it speaks. It chooses solitude, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. You want power. First, you must learn to be alone. Rid yourself of noise. Rid yourself of comfort. Ask yourself, without applause or company, who are you really? If that question makes you restless, good. That's where the path begins. Also, consider signing up for the part of you that's tired of pretending. For the part of you that's ready to grow, not in status but in self-mastery. This is the Stoic path. Walk with purpose. Walk alone. The faces are warm, the voice is comforting. Everyone loves the beginning. Everyone loves a climb that hasn't yet threatened their position. But as you continue upward, you begin to feel the weight of silence closing in, not because you've become cruel or distant, but because you've begun to choose. You start to select which voices you allow near your thoughts, which hands you allow near your work. And slowly, almost quietly, the crowd becomes a small circle, then a line, and sometimes just a shadow behind you. The truth is, power was never meant to be a group activity. It's not about how many people you can gather, but about how many you have the courage to walk away from. The people who once supported you often feel betrayed, not because you hurt them, but because you grew without their permission. You made decisions they weren't part of, and in their eyes, that's disloyalty. But in truth, it's the only way real growth happens. Power demands boundaries, not all at once, but gradually, like a fortress built brick by brick, thought by thought, until it's clear not everyone is meant to enter. Not everyone should have a key. And that's where it gets uncomfortable. Those who complain loudest about your distance are usually the ones who benefited most from your closeness. They weren't there for your discipline, your clarity, your vision. They were there for the warmth of your fire. And when you stopped burning for them, they grew cold. That's when it all hits you. You didn't lose them. You filtered them. Without even realizing it, your journey began to do what all real transformations do. It began to remove what no longer aligns. That's not rejection, it's refinement. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to defend it. Because if you try, you'll find yourself shrinking just to ease someone else's discomfort with your evolution. And the moment you do that, you've already stepped off the path you were meant to follow. It's lonely, yes, but not in the way people think. You're not longing for more company. You're craving cleaner air, the kind of silence that sharpens you instead of softening you, the kind of space where your thoughts aren't interrupted by noise pretending to be support. And when you reach that level of stillness, you begin to understand why the Stoics valued solitude not as isolation, but as alignment. Marcus Aurelius said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." And calm does not come in rooms full of ego and expectation. It comes when you choose peace over popularity, quiet over applause, self-trust over validation. That's not arrogance, it's responsibility. When you're building something that matters, your business, your purpose, your mind, you can't afford to carry everyone with you. Some people are heavy in the worst way, not because they're bad, but because they weren't built for the weight you must lift. And every time you lower your standards to keep someone comfortable, you lower your altitude. You trade clarity for closeness, and closeness when paired with noise, eventually clouds everything you once saw so clearly. People will misunderstand this. They'll call it selfishness, coldness, detachment. Let them, because the truth is, the people who really matter will understand that boundaries aren't walls. They're filters. Filters that keep your mind clear, your mission focused, and your heart protected from unnecessary chaos. And those who don't understand were never truly with you. They were just around you. There's a difference. You stop seeking advice from every direction. You begin to listen only to the few who truly understand, and even then, you treat every opinion as a suggestion, not a command. You learn to carry your own compass, because after enough time listening to yourself in solitude, the noise of others begins to sound like static. It's not malice nor threat, just irrelevance. It lives in the person who can sit alone with their decisions and not waver, who can lose approval and not panic, who can walk away from praise and not look back for confirmation. That's real power, the kind that doesn't shake with popularity nor crumble under pressure. And the people who reach that state are rarely loud. They don't explain themselves, they don't chase appearances, they just do the work, quietly, consistently, undisturbed. You start to realize that the climb was never about being seen. It was about seeing clearly, and the higher you go, the less you need. The less you speak, the more you observe. And the more you understand that true power isn't about having influence over others. It's about not needing it. It's being okay with not being understood, with being misinterpreted, with being alone, not as punishment, but as protection. Presence with your thoughts, your values, your direction. You see things as they are, not as others try to paint them. You aren't distracted by flattery nor shaken by criticism. You listen, but you don't absorb everything. You engage, but you don't entangle. And that's the silent discipline most people never reach, not because they can't, but because they don't want to give up the comfort of being surrounded. What most call loneliness, the powerful call alignment. And in that alignment, everything unnecessary disappears. So yes, power filters, not with cruelty but with clarity. It separates what's essential from what's convenient, what strengthens you from what distracts you, what's real from what's performative. It's not about walking away from people. It's about walking toward your truth and accepting that most won't follow you there. And in the rare moments when someone does, you'll know they belong. Not because they fought to stay close, but because they chose the same silence, the same discipline, the same path. You won't have to explain. You'll just know. We grow up believing that to be loved, trusted, accepted, we must open up, show our emotions, reveal our stories, let others in. And at first, that feels like strength. Vulnerability feels noble, honest, human. But as you step into positions of influence, something changes. You start to see how every weakness shared can become a weapon. Every doubt revealed becomes someone's advantage. What once made you relatable now makes you exposed. And suddenly, being seen no longer feels safe. It feels like a risk you can't afford if you're carrying something larger than yourself. Vulnerability becomes a performance review. And even when people say, "I want honesty," what they really mean is, "Give me your struggle, but only if it inspires me, not if it makes me uncomfortable." That's not acceptance, it's conditional tolerance. And leaders can't build on that. Fears you can't name, because naming them would shake the confidence of everyone watching. The further you move into your purpose, the more your silence becomes your shield. Not because you're hiding, but because explaining yourself has become a vulnerability. And power, real power, thrives in controlled expression, not emotional transparency. But when released without restraint, it creates chaos. Imagine a storm without structure, just noise, wind, destruction. That's what uncontrolled emotion looks like in power. It doesn't comfort, it confuses. And confusion is the first crack in your foundation. Because when you're entrusted with carrying a vision, clarity must come before closeness. And sometimes The very people you long to connect with can't handle the full depth of your truth without misinterpreting it. And the fewer people who have access to your inner world, the more protected your purpose becomes. Not everyone should know what keeps you up at night. Not everyone should be invited into the furnace where your strength is forged. That doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear. There's a difference. Coldness is indifference. Clarity is responsibility. They want access but not responsibility. Presence but not pressure. And the moment you withhold something, your time, your thoughts, your feelings, they say you've changed, that you've grown distant. But in truth, you've only grown aware. And the powerful cannot afford to be leashed. Not by praise, not by criticism, and especially not by emotional dependence. Not in anger, but in understanding. You realize that true intimacy isn't being completely known by others. It's being completely honest with yourself. It's looking at your flaws without dramatizing them. It's acknowledging your fears without turning them into spectacle. It's living with such integrity that even when no one sees, you still act with honor. That's the foundation of power. And authenticity doesn't require exposure. It requires alignment. What you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony, even if no one applauds. It's a silent contract you sign with yourself every day. I will not sell my peace for validation. I will not compromise my clarity to fit in. And when you live that way, you become unpredictable, not because you're erratic, but because you're incorruptible. Those who can't influence you will call you cold. Those who can't control you will call you arrogant, but you'll know. Those are just labels people use when they meet someone who won't negotiate their soul. And that's rare. Rare enough to be misunderstood almost always. You begin to understand that each stage of your journey will demand a more refined version of you. More disciplined, more focused, less reactive, calmer. You stop reacting to everything that moves. You stop justifying every decision. You stop seeking approval in every glance, and suddenly the silence that once felt heavy begins to feel like freedom. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer need to be seen. You simply are. And that being, that steady, quiet presence, begins to emit a different kind of energy. People feel it, even if they don't understand it. They can't explain it, but they know there's something in you that can't be shaken. And that's the mark of those who have mastered themselves. They walk through noise without absorbing it. They speak with purpose, not impulse. They act with conviction, not for attention. They don't need the stage, because they've become the stage. Wherever they are, their presence changes the atmosphere. That's why the ancients called the Stoic path the silent road, because the further you walk it, the more you leave noise behind. You lose interest in useless debates, social games, meaningless comparisons. You stop competing with others and start competing with your former self. And that competition never ends, but it never betrays you either, because unlike people, it always takes you higher. You'll smile and reply, because for the first time I'm hearing what truly matters. And in that silence, you'll find everything the noise promised, but could never deliver. Clarity, purpose, peace. And you'll understand that power was never about being feared, followed, or celebrated. It was always about being unshakable. It isn't punishment. It's privilege. The privilege of being completely present with yourself. No distraction, no disguise, no mask. And when you can stay there without running, without filling the void with noise, without needing witnesses, that's where true power awakens.